So, we're having some minor technical difficulties. Where I would normally see chat, which is over here on this side of the window for me, I just have this dumb monkey with a something went wrong. So, I'm gonna have to like ghetto do this by using my phone, which is working correctly. So, apologies if this one's gonna be extra terrible. I'll try and fix the problem while we're here, but it's not being very helpful right now because YouTube is weird sometimes and likes to just be broken, or I don't know. Like there's a bunch of different things that you see in like your little broadcast studio, and like none of them work. All I can see is the preview and the fact that we are live. That's what I've been trying to debug. That's why we started a little late. So apologies there. But yeah. This is gonna be a weird one. Okay. I can at least see chat on my phone, so I'm so sorry about this. This is gonna be real strange for a minute. Okay, so I'll dive in a topic, and then hopefully whatever YouTube is messing with will kind of fix itself. I might be able to uh, do some stuff here. I know there are some like things I can do in my broadcasting software, but yeah. Get chat here. Oh, hallelujah. That works. Okay, this is much better. I at least have some form of chat now. Oh my lord. And then it does this. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna have to do some things and some stuff, but it is fine. It's all fine. So this is gonna be real ghetto. I apologize. Focus. Okay. So I've I want to first explain what prompted this topic because we've we remember years ago there was this big trend, and I even did one where we talked about like our worst day in fish keeping, and as I've been kind of slowly doing things, making some small changes with the way that I'm keeping my tanks and things like that over time, I was I had some thoughts in my head, mostly spawned by work and also by current events. It just like how do we learn from things that go wrong? And let me give you an example. We've had some problems, we'll just put it that way, at my work that I've basically had to fix regularly, which is that there is a certain fear, wonder, paranoia, you can kind of pick your word, that like people aren't being thorough with some of the things that we do when we're doing test work. And what I mostly mean is like if we find a problem and we haven't personally encountered it before, it's kind of standard practice to go and do some searching to make sure that that issue isn't already documented, because you don't want like 5 different versions of the same issue documented. That's really bad for keeping things organized, making sure that priorities are correct and the right stakeholders and blah blah blah, all the stuff that kind of doesn't matter, but it just causes extra junk we don't need. I don't We've had some of this stuff lately, and I've had to kind of teach people that should know, this like, hey, when you encounter something, if you personally haven't seen it, here's the steps to take. And here's a couple of like queries that will look at all of the existing open bugs on this thingamajob or for this feature or whatever the heck, right? Here's an easy way to quickly check. I got to thinking about that, and then I kind of got to thinking about that in the case of like fish stuff, because my wife and I are like steadily doing a few things when it comes to her streaming and some like kind of YouTube stuff, and it's been making me think about things for my own personal YouTube stuff, right? Um, and it kind of was like me trying to remember some of the problems that I had or things that I just didn't know that I now know that I could help coach her with. And then I made me think like, well, I can do this for fish too, because I have screwed up plenty. I have made probably every mistake in the book. The Australian opinion, I learned at the age of 16 to test, and test some more. That's probably one of the biggest things. So we'll start there. When I came back to this hobby, my first couple tanks, I tested and tested and tested and tested. And then, a year or two down the line, I got this false sense of security. And I didn't keep reliably testing, especially with certain tanks that don't have some of the safety precautions, aka plants, that my other tanks had that had given me that false sense of security. And for those who've been around for the channel for a long time, you will know, like, I had a disaster, and it's my worst day in fish keeping, with my zebra pleco colony. I had 8 zebra plecos, 2 of which I confirmed were female, and I lost my entire colony. They were all at basically right at breeding age, and I had been taking too many pieces of advice and combining at the same time, and that could lead to a risk, and I wasn't paying attention by testing regularly to make sure that that risk couldn't possibly occur. I just assumed that by doing the level of water changing I was supposed to do, that I'd be okay, but I had done 2 things at once. I had increased the amount of food I was providing and changed my water change schedule at the same time, which caused a buildup to occur, and it finally hit a critical point, and that's when I started losing some of my fish. And eventually I lost all of my fish in a very, very short period of time, because it went from kind of a warning to catastrophic very, very fast. Test your damn tanks. Even now, like, I don't test every water change, but I pay a lot of attention to the things that tell me when I do or do not. And do not is not necessarily the best wording, but that's what I can think of right now while my brain is like half fried. When I do and do not need to test. And one of the easy answers is, if I know I haven't tested my water in the last month, I need to test my water. No matter what. Because I need to at least have a baseline understanding of, just make sure that everything is where I think it should be. Because I do weekly water change work. I have almost all of my tanks are very densely planted. You guys have seen them all. So the likelihood of things getting out of control is pretty low. But if we just assume that because it's low, it's not going to happen, we will set ourselves up for failure. Bob Purcell, great question. What do I test? I just use a really basic, nowadays, when I'm testing for speed, and I don't necessarily need to be hyper thorough, I start with a very simple Tetra 6-in-1 test strip. And if I see anything that's outside of the area of what I'm expecting, I then pull out an ammonia strip. But if one particular value that I need to pay attention to is reading anywhere different than I'm expecting by a reasonable margin. So like, let's say that I'm expecting my KH to be at a certain point and it's under that by an entire like level on the test strip. Then I break out my API test kit and I do full chemical test kit. Because I want to verify against 2 different types of tests where the changes occurred, and something that gets me a little extra accuracy. accuracy extra in quotation marks, because it's not perfect, right? We're not talking of the spectrometer here, but that's where I tend to start. So I like the Tetra 6-in-1 test strips. And I do have like aquarium co-op test strips in certain rooms, and I'll use those over Tetra, just because that container happens to be sitting in that particular room. So it's just convenience. And having done the big anoxic experiment, weak in English, I know that they are relatively accurate to each other. And even though, like Aquarium Fun is mentioning, Aquarium Co-op and Tetra are both fine, you just need to learn what the colors mean over time. Even though I kind of know what the colors are, I always compare direct to the color chart. And it's one of those things where over time I have built up that mentality of don't assume, question. And part of that is my career, right? My job, where I test things for a living, where I love to say I break stuff for a living. My job is to ask a lot of questions. I should never assume something is one way or another. I should ask a question and ensure it is before I proceed. There's the old adage, there are no stupid questions. And I both firmly believe in that and disagree, in the sense that sometimes we try to be too smart for ourselves, and we need to ask the thing that we perceive to be the stupid question. Because sometimes the simplest things, the stupid questions, are the most revealing. Test your tank. Lesson 1. Anna Banana, I find the nitrate measurements on test strips are not sensitive enough for me. I tend to agree, but usually they will tell me if something is either too low or way too high. It's not going to tell me how perfectly I am right where I want to be and say that like 10 to 20 or 20 to 40 ppms as accurately as I'd like, but it will tell me if something has gone off the charts or if something is lacking completely. And that's kind of all I care about when it comes to nitrate. I want to make sure that it's not at the top of the chart and it's not 0. As long as it reads somewhere in the middle, I'm probably okay, because if I see it a little bit high and not all the way at the top, I can just go, okay, don't dose fertilizers for like an extra week or so. And it should naturally bring itself down. And then when I do see that, like let's say I see it at 100, we'll make up a number. I don't think that's actually on the test strip off the top of my head. But if I see like 100 and I'm targeting, say, 20 to 40, then next week I will run another quick test without doing any fertilizers to make sure that that has come down. Does that make sense? So that's when I'll put those mental notes in of like, okay, this tank tested a little high, but not high enough to where I need to be paranoid, right? Not high enough where I need to be scared. Next week, we're doing our water change, and then next week we test again. Stephen P. See what you're doing there. See what you're doing. Now, let's talk about the next lesson. Ooh, I'm sorry, puppy. My puppy's at my feet. I'm sorry, babies. There you go. There you go. Little pet on the butt. She's trying to run away from me. Oh, God. My dog. She's like, yeah, why you kick me, Dad? What the heck? It's like, just trying to move my feet. That's what you get for sleeping right on top of them. No, don't bark. Hey, don't do this. I'll come over there and get you. Come here, Shani. And literally see the sides of her flanks, right? Like huffing in and out because she's getting ready to bark. And she knows, like, I probably shouldn't, but she wants to. I can tell with that dog. Anyway, we'll try to ignore her for a little bit and not be completely off the rails. Lesson 2. When I set up my what I call the fish room or the warm room or the grow room, depending on how long you guys have been watching, I've called it different things over a period of time, because as that room where a majority of my fish tanks sit, it has kind of evolved and changed, and its purpose has changed. However, when I first set it up, I was trying to set it up for like tank density in a small space, dealing with certain things that are in that room. And what I didn't do is pre-plan it. Lesson number 2, for any of us who have multiple tank syndrome. If you're trying to do a particular room where you're going to keep all of your tanks, before you start just throwing tanks up as fast as you can, because it's like, I've got this space, I can fit this many tanks, or I can fit this many racks. Take your time and plan it out. And really, like, what I would thoroughly suggest to people is measure things. Then go get some like blue painter's tape or some masking tape or whatever cheap tape Lord, that you can get at a Dollar Tree or whatever, right? You go to your dollar store or any place where you can get it relatively inexpensive, and literally tape the floor where you want things to be. The reason why we use painter's tape is it's relatively easy to get up, doesn't leave a mess, it's cheap and disposable. Map these things out. Because one of the things that you will eventually find, and I have found this in my current fish room, and without basically tearing almost the whole thing down, I will have this forever. There are certain places in my fish room that, because I'm a larger person, I kind of can't get to. So when I put things up in the first place thinking, all right, this is the best way to maximize my space, what I've actually done is created little areas that are effectively completely unusable. Because I didn't plan. I just was like, okay, we put these 2 racks against the wall over here. We got this little space in the middle where the filing cabinet is. I bet we could fit a small tank on top of that. Okay, we got this. So we do have the one little like chest freezer that's over here, the tiny one, but I can store some fish food in that. That'll be great. We don't want to put anything on top of it though. We need to be able to open it. Oh, we got a little room for a tiny little like table here. We could put 1 tank there, but not enough for like a full rack. Oh, we could put a kind of a displayish tank over here by this window and the big tank behind us. This sounds great. Oh, I'm going to have space to move inside. It's like, yeah, in the middle of the room, I've got space to get to all the tanks. But depending on where power plugs are and certain pieces of equipment are, they actually become hard to get to when something goes wrong. So when something goes wrong, I am fighting the way that I designed my own fish room in order to address things at times. Now, I have slowly over time shifted a few things and moved it to make sure that they're not in some of those unusable spaces, but I still have completely unusable space. Because of the way I've designed things. Plan ahead, it's your best friend. I know, and most people are probably like me. It was like, oh, I put a tank in this room. Now I know that I can get this entire room. You've cleared it with your significant other, or you've figured out like, okay, I can get a couple racks that'll fit in here, and now I can make it more dense, and maybe I can do this, or I can set an airline hook to go to everything, and I've got a linear air piston. I'm going to do this right. If you're going to do any of those things, anything that is designed for scale and numbers, take time to plan it out. It is your best friend. It's your best friend. Because if you plan it ahead of time, you can catch some of these problems early. Another example I will give you. Let us say that you need to get to certain power plugs. But if you put all your tanks in the way, you might not be able to easily get to those power plugs. They're easy to get to when a tank's not in a rack, but as soon as that rack is full of tanks, all of a sudden, certain power plugs or how you're running some of your lines, as an example, might be impossible to get to. So if you needed to move something, replace it, adjust it, because maybe you're getting a water drip somewhere, or a check valve went bad, or even a line popped off of your CO2, but you can't easily get to the dang thing, you kind of screwed yourself. I did that to myself. This is why I know. So if I ever, as an example, if I ever get the opportunity to do my garage, which is like my long-term goal, I will be spending possibly months with a bunch of blue painter's tape, measuring, planning, thinking, and then looking and going like, okay, if I hold something up flat, like a big piece of cardboard to represent height, can I fit easily into the space if I need to access this power thing, or where my power panel is, etc.? Can I get to them? Planning is your friend when it comes to building out a fish room. Test your tanks, plan your fish rooms. I want to get a couple of super chats we had, and then I'll get to like kind of my last major one, and then we'll get a kind of open Q&A. I know this is getting a little long. Johnny Best, $5 sticker. The Hippos, thanks, buddy. I really appreciate it, man. You're always just like, you're too generous, Johnny. You need to chill out. You take it easy on me. You need to make me work for it more. Oh no, I really appreciate it, man. You're the best. Budget bonsai, hippie mantra, turn on, tune in, drop out. Aquarium hippie mantra, turn off, plant out, unplug. I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. There's a lot of things that we can crutch with a similar mentality, where we can rely a little less on certain technologies and more on nature. Internet problems in Peru. I mean, I get it. Although you're in an area where I thought you had pretty good internet, right? Also, by the way, Rack, I haven't actively, like, when you were doing a lot of your pawn stuff for a while, when did you change to budget bonsai? How long ago was that? AKA, how out of touch am I with an update on your channel to where I definitely need to go back and like catch the F up? Because I know it's been a bit. Let me know, buddy. All right. So the last. It's not the last, but if I go with too many more, we'll be talking all night and we won't have time for questions and answers. Which, by the way, if you do have questions, at Bentley Pasco makes it super easy for me to see. Feel free to start shooting them there, and we'll get to them here in just a second. My last piece of advice to you all. This is going to sound like I'm copping out to like probably my favorite part of this hobby, but let nature do its damn thing. For most of us who are going to be, especially if you're watching my channel, you are probably into planted tanks. Nature has an incredible capability to balance itself if you let it happen. Kind of how Lucas Bretz will talk about comfortability, right? That's kind of like his secret tech, his code word, his brand, one might even say, in a lot of his aquariums. And that faith that nature will create that environment naturally. If you're doing plants in a tank, other than if you're having plant struggles, right? This is where we do some things, but when we get to a point of where we have found that stability of a tank settling in from new to however we've gotten it to a level of planting, right? Because there is always like a little bit of a struggle period when you do something new, typically. Let nature do the work. And what I mean is this. Rather than And this might go contrary to some things you hear from me on occasion, because I am very tech centered. But rather than rely 100% on technology, like all things in life, you need balance. So if you are capable of having plants in some way, shape, or form in your aquarium, let nature do its thing. And the other way that we can look at this is when it comes to fish, when we're trying to breed fish, because there was a question from Oinky, and I'll get to it very shortly. If you're trying to push fish to breed, don't. If they're going to do it, they're going to do it when they feel the most comfortable and when things are right. So rather than focusing on, even if it's a piece of advice from the best breeder of fish X in the world, if it's not working, fall back to the important fundamentals. Keep your water quality good. Don't overstock. Don't overfeed. And let nature do its thing. Eventually, if your fish are happy with their environment, guess what they're going to do? Make more fish. Now, they might have some struggles, and you might have some struggles. You might have something like my dumb Wabbenmooster plecos who kick out every batch of eggs they've ever had. Ever had. So the few Wabbenmooster babies I've had to do a bunch of extra artificial raising and catch it at the right time before eggs started going bad. That's okay. Those are the adjustments we can make. But if we're trying to force things, and similar to my zebra pleco thing, I was trying to do a number of things together based on what was good advice, but bad advice in combination, right? Good individually, bad when I combined them all, trying to go as fast as possible. Let nature do its thing. Don't try to force it. It's the old Jurassic Park. Nature will find a way. Let nature do its thing. Now, granted, we still want to be paying attention to our parameters. We test our tanks. We still want to plan a little bit. We don't want to make sure that we're trying to breed a very large fish in a very tiny tank, right? But nature will do its thing. So have a little faith in that and just kind of let it do it. One of the best parts about this hobby is getting to enjoy a slice of nature in a tiny glass box in a place where theoretically it shouldn't even possibly exist. So let it. Let it exist. Let it do its thing. Let it show you how magical it is. That's 3 lessons I have learned from mistakes that I've made. When I've tried to force things, things have gone wrong. When I've had a little faith and let nature do its thing, things have gone right. When I didn't plan, I screwed up. And when I stopped testing, I had one of the biggest catastrophes in my entire fish keeping experience. I don't want to say career, because this is not a career, this is a hobby, but it's an experience. So hopefully you can learn a little bit from those lessons. Or you're already doing it, you're perfect, and it's obvious and I'm an idiot. All right, gang. Let's get through ye chat here. Oh, if they're Pets Corner, man, 45 months. Thank you so much, bud. I really appreciate it. Good to see you. Do I have any experience with Pictus cat breeding? Nope. I do not, Oinky. 18 months now. So sweet. But yeah, I'm not I like Pictus cats, but I really haven't kept them. There was a local in my club for a while who was very actively keeping them and breeding them. But she's had some like changes to her own life to where she's basically had to kind of stop almost all of her fish keeping for a period of time. Um, or not, I don't think not Pictuses. I'm sorry, not Pictuses. I'm confusing a fish with another fish. I definitely have not bred Pictus cats because I don't think I've ever had Pictus cats. Trying to think of the little. They're like a tan and black spotted African catfish that has like big white whiskers on it. There's a small version and a bigger version. Those are the ones that my local person has bred, and I'm being brain dead at the moment. I gotta look it up. Well, I also have to type correctly. Somebody's gonna beat me to this because they just know better than I do. But yeah, they're not a super big fish. Oh, come on. Give me the actual name. Petricolas. That's what I'm looking for. Petricolas. She breeds Petricolas. They're so cute. We got there. Oh boy. But yeah, no experience with Pictus. There has to be somebody who's bred Pictus cats in captivity. Because they're really similar to Petricolas. Um, but yeah, no experience at all. Sorry. Adam, excellent point about being patient with breeding fish. I finally got my green laser cories to breed after over a year of trying. Now to raise the eggs and fry. That's sweet. Synodontis petricola equals Lucipinus. I just know them as the petricola and the dwarf petricola. But yeah. This not my area of expertise. I'm an idiot who does rainbow fish usually and guppies. I'm realistically the I haven't outside of the guppy project, which by the way I need to do a video. I might do that. That might be this week because I want to show you guys like how an update on how the new guppy project is going because there's just like an army of babies in there and they're getting a good size on them and all the females are like very clearly pregnant again. So we're getting there. We're replenishing the army. All off of one male. One boy. He's putting in work. But it's just it's good news. It means they're all happy. I've actually been debating potentially putting some shrimp in that tank. Because I feed it pretty well. Because between the combination of the undergravel and the other filtrations, it and the plants and everything, it has like a really nice balance in it. Although I do need to get a touch of CO2 in there to help the plants kind of kick off and go really crazy. But yeah. Paul Soltero. Does that mean putting an Oscar in a 10-gallon tank is a bad thing? Know what you're trying to do. You should go ask John from KG Tropicals. You could, in theory, put a very tiny baby Oscar in there for like, I don't know, a month? Because if you're feeding them right, man, them things grow quick. They get big fast. All the big cichlids, they get big 10 inches for 10 gallons. Yeah, you could put your 1 10-inch Oscar in a 10-gallon tank. Oh Lord, that poor fish. That poor fish. Oh, I would pity that poor fish. And there's people out there. So like, I will tell you a horror story from a friend of mine, who used to work at fish stores and currently is doing other things. But for those of you who followed Aquarium Co-op for a really really long time, there was like a series they did on Facebook where it was like Allie feeds. And for those who are local, you probably actually know Allie if you've been going there for a while. But Allie is a good friend of mine, and she would tell me these horror stories every once in a while of some of the customers where you're trying everything you can to educate a customer, but they won't listen. And so, like, as an example, she had this person who came in and wanted to get a discus. I was like, okay, how big is your tank? I was like, oh, well, I just have this little fish bowl, but it's pretty big. It's a big bowl. It's like this. And she's like, so discus can get like the size of a dinner plate. They really need a much larger tank. Typically, we suggest something like a 75-gallon or even 100 plus gallons. Usually, is what we really suggest because of how big discus will get, and they need to be kept fairly warm. You're like, oh, it's by a window; it stays warm. Is there a heater in it? No. I cannot sell you a discus. And I remember this, and it was just a thought that comes to my head of like, you will eventually have that person who will see like, oh, inch per gallon. So that means I can put this fish that's gonna get that big in my tank. Or the whole like, oh, a fish will only grow, the other like myth that a fish will only grow as big as the tank will allow them to. They do that with like common plecos all the time, that thought process that like, oh, if I keep a common pleco in a small tank, it won't get that big. I have seen plecos that are like a foot in like 20-gallon tanks. And it's disturbing. Where you're just like, oh no. Oh no. But yeah. And that's kind of the part that like you will inevitably, unfortunately, like a lot of us try to prevent that, right? Most of us really care about things, doing it right. It's Laura G, it's why I don't work in retail. I was getting close to asking customers, are you stupid? I remember when Allie was telling me the story, and I'm like, okay, so you didn't sell the fish to him, right? She's like, no, of course not. But here's the thing. Somebody eventually will, or somebody won't even ask a question. Because people like that will see something they want, and they will be so stubborn that they will go anywhere that will sell it to them. And eventually there will be a person who's like, oh, okay, you want a discus? Sure, which one do you want? And they won't ever ask a question, and they'll just sell it. And then when something goes wrong, of course, that person will probably blame that fish store, as opposed to looking internally and realizing, like, I have made a mistake. How do I prevent this from happening again? Right? This is why, very similarly to Laura, I will never open a fish store. Never. Because I would struggle to handle that kind of situation. Amongst many other reasons why I wouldn't open a fish store. But yeah. Yeah. It's gonna happen eventually. That's the same look my wife gives me. Always blame other, that's the golden rule. Explains a lot. Oh Lord. Alright, EJ. What would make GHKH different from my tap versus my tank? GH is 7, KH is 10 in the aquarium, but my GH is 8. Oh, in the aquarium, from tap, GH7, KH 10, aquarium GH8, KH 15, TDS both 650, 8.3 pH. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, And you don't necessarily have to answer them. You might just think about this to yourself, but you can answer them if you want, and we can dig in a little deeper, EJ. What kind of hardscape is in your tank? Because if you have any kind of rock or even a substrate that has some level of interaction with your water, aka it's not inert, those could be a reason why some of those things would increase a little bit. Typically, carbonate hardness goes down over time if we don't touch anything. However, if we have things that are in our aquarium that are slowly water soluble, they can increase KH. Now, GH is a lot different, right? Because if we're not fully doing a water change, maybe we're just doing top-offs, we're not diluting down that calcium and magnesium. Those are the primary things that GH is measuring. There's a few other things, but that's really like 99% of it, basically put. We're not diluting that down because as water evaporation occurs, that mineral content basically stays. Some of it will end up on your glass, right? You know, those little like mineral rings you'll see where you see like kind of the white wavy line on your glass. But as we refill, if we're not removing a bunch first, we are just adding more GH. We're adding more mineral content. So even though out of the tap it's GH7, over time, because of that evaporation kind of concentrating those minerals, and then we're adding a little bit more as we're topping off, it will cause K or GH to slowly climb. And in theory, KH could do the same, but typically KH increases because of something else that is having an interaction within the tank. So like my example to you would be not necessarily crushed coral, because you're probably not using crushed coral given your natural tap. But like if you use Cereus stone has those like nice little white veins in it. Those are deposits of minerals that are slowly water soluble, and they will affect your water depending on how much of it you have in your aquarium. If you have a really robust amount of rock, it can slowly increase those mineral contents in your water to where they'll add even just a touch more outside of the tap. So that'd be my first question to you. Typically, this is because we have something else in the tank that is not inert and will influence our GH, KH, pH. It's the most common reason. If you're using like Texas Holy Rock as an example, extremely interactive with your water. We'll put it that way, right? It has a lot of effect on your water. Robert Johnson, but feel free to answer that, EJ, and we can dig a little deeper potentially. Have you ever had an experience with a new aquarium sponge release harmful chemicals in your tank? I added a new sponge and my fish were flashing, so I removed it and did a large water change. I don't think so, but that's mostly because I've always bought my sponges from really particular sources. Um, I really like the specific, like the Hydro 5 sponge as an example, or I've used some of the Aquarium Co-op Corsair ones, and those tend to be slightly higher quality. There are some... Try not to sound like a jerk when I say this. Some of the little like dual sponge with the outlet that has the media in it, like the super cheap Chinese made ones, I don't know how good their process is when it comes to ensuring that as that foam or that sponge is being created, that it is properly gassed off, and thus that there's not some lingering chemical that could influence your water. I personally have not experienced that. Do I think it is possible? Absolutely. Is that exactly the reason of what you are seeing? Not necessarily. Paul, check your mail. Uh-oh. Getting threats from Paul. No. Not that one. That's the wrong one. I have like 4 different windows open. Here's your proof. Oh, no. Hold on. Paul's having too much fun. Can do this. Make a little adjustment here. Paul's over here keeping his suspiciously AI generated looking Oscar in a fishbowl. Yeah. Garage kills. Bentley's house of oversized fish. We only sell 10-gallon tanks with Oscars, arowanas, and common plecos. Oh, sir, no, come on. We're going Dovi. I'm going to sell you a 5-gallon tank with a pair of Dovi and a common Oscar. Because you need a cleanup crew for those messy fish. Oh, Lord. That looks just like my fishbowl, Christopher. Oh, Lord. I need this every once in a while. A red tail cat. That'll everybody keep everybody in line. EJ, okay, great. 3 fairly large stones found on the riverbank, not sure of the type. Dirted substrate with Absorbit as a cap. Oh, there you go. It's the Absorbit. And some driftwood. So Absorbit, just going to make sure, I'm pretty confident, same as Safety Zorb, right? Absorbit. We're just going to do this. Can I just go? Just going to tell me. So, assuming, of course, it goes to a 404 not found. Because, like, Absorbit, Oil Dry, Safety Zorb are all the same thing, which is Montmorillonite clay. Montmorillonite is something that is kind of an old school thing that people will do. They'll put a small amount of Montmorillonite clay at the very base of their substrate to increase mineral content. Montmorillonite clay will increase your GH and KH. So as you're diluting that water back down, a small amount of it's going back up. That being said, with the difference that you're getting, because it's not super huge, I wouldn't stress about it too much. Alec Kubanov dropping like massive wisdom. Kalk, K-A-L-K, is German for calcium, hence KH measures calcium and magnesium. Isn't calcium and magnesium our general hardness, though? Because KH is our carbonate hardness, which is a different measure? Am I incorrect here? Pretty sure general hardnesses are calcium, magnesium. Still good to know the German there. Yeah, KH is carbonate. Also, Kalkwasser, just as a like non-German speaker, is kind of a funny word. I'm just gonna say it. I know it matters, but it's funny to me. It's like Sawassertang, right? When you look at that word and you try to read it, you're just like, can't do it. But yeah. What did you just call me? I say that to my brother-in-law and to my friends and my wife all the time when they'll say something that it's like you could even vaguely think is an insult. It's like, what did you just call me? I have just discovered a European aquascaping company called WIO that sells biotope kits. It's such a good idea. They come with different substrates, woods, botanicals. That's cool. That's cool. I like it. It's Sue. I just got home from work. Career retail management. I use fish to cope and not choke anyone out. I've worked in retail before. I want to be very, very clear. Thankfully, most of my retail experience was when I was, how do I put this, less cynical about the world. When I was younger and more optimistic. No, I've worked retail. I know how to like kind of put that aside. But I have certainly, so like I worked at a little mom and pop burger joint. I worked at a GameStop. I've worked for radio stations. I worked doing phone-based customer service. Let me tell you, that teaches you all sorts of things, because when people aren't in person, man, does the difference in how the average person treats you, which is why I start as polite as possible with any customer service. And typically, if I cannot get if I cannot get my answer or some help, whatever it may be, through the nice way, is the only time where I get kind of like stern and terse. But I never try to be outrightly angry or vicious, if that makes sense. I have only been truly vicious over the phone with, I think, 3 things. Scam calls, I love being vicious to them. My wife gets a surprising number of scam calls, and anytime that she recognizes one as being a potential scam, she will hand me the phone, because she wants to just laugh in the background at how much of an absolute jackass I can be to some of those jerks on the phone. I am not nice at all to them, because I can't stand people who do that as their way to make money in the world. Dealing with insurance, particularly insurance that is on the deny or just try to screw you mentality, I'm not very nice when it comes to that either. I start nice, and then when they won't listen to reason, I get a little persnickety. But other than that, I like being nice to people, because it was my experience, anytime I had a customer who was nice to me, I wanted to help them. Right? You get somebody who's like, listen, having a bad day, having this problem, I'm really hoping you can help me out here. What information do you need from me? How can I help you make it easier to figure out a path to help me? Right? That kind of mentality works. Catch more flies with honey. Such a perfect it's not an idiom, right? There's a specific terminology for that type of saying that isn't just like such a good saying, right? Brain is so out the window right now. Last few weeks have been a little rough at work. Not gonna lie, I've worked extra overtime when I probably shouldn't be, and I don't get paid for it because I'm salaried. Metaphor, analogy, yeah, all of them. I'll take it all. Take it all. My retail philosophy is the customer is always right. Ooh, okay. Can I actually? I know this has nothing to do with fish, and yet it does. I had a fantastic professor in college for a marketing class. Um, and he was a professor of he had a doctorate of psychology before he ever started working in the marketing field. And I remember this without fail. One of my favorite professors I've ever had. He would always say the following: the customer is rarely right. However, the customer always has a right. Which is to say that very often customers are not correct. Sometimes they very much are, right? But they always have the right to express their problem, to complain, etc. And as long as we understand that every customer, no matter what portion of a business we're a part of, because sometimes the customer is your coworker, right? Sometimes the customer is the actual customer. Sometimes the customer is the person you're reporting to. Sometimes your boss is your customer. They always have a right to express a problem, to talk to you. Sometimes they even have a right to be an ass, right? But it doesn't mean that they're always right. Very frequently, they're not. But they always have a right, and it is our job to sit there, to listen to them honestly, and to do our best to help them. In Australia, all customers are entitled to a full refund, even if it's a change of mind. The mandatory is 30 days. What a blissfully wonderful policy. Because you know what that forces in a kind of interesting way? It forces companies to focus on quality. Because if you have a bankruptcy, no, it doesn't force bankruptcy. It means that selling cheap crap products because of a policy like that is never going to get you ahead. You are incentivized because of a policy like that to naturally give people a higher quality product to begin with. When you have a policy like that to where it's just, this is the standard, it's a national standard. Selling cheap, disposable crap will never be successful. So guess what you need to do? You need to offer either a better quality product or a product that is of good quality at a better price. That's how your business stays competitive. Could do a lot of good in a lot of places that don't do it. My damn country. States. Good lord. Would kill for it. Or not participate. I mean, I guess, right? I guess. No, YouTube. I don't want to insert ads. Go away. Hey, you're fine. What are you barking at? You heard a single noise outside the door. You're going to go bark at it? My dog. She's so weird. Eric, any experience with your Heroes lights? Not yet. I don't own any. However, I have lots of friends who have them and swear by them. When I see them in a store, they look amazing, but I've seen poor reviews of their app, which is making me hesitant on top of the crazy pricing. So, Danny, that's enough. You are growling at nothing just because you decided to bark at something outside the door. No. She hears brother-in-law James down the hall. And then she starts to bark, and now she's got to bark at everything. Anywhere. Whatever. So, let me get back on top. The app is not the most user-friendly thing. I've heard this from a lot of people. Even Stephen P. is saying in a chat. He's got them. A number of my fish friends across the country are big fans of Chihiro's lights. The app is not the most user-friendly thing, but once you set things in place, it works very rock solid. As far as cost, yes, they are more expensive, but you are getting a significantly higher quality light than pretty much anything else on the market. If you need something that is super powerful, Chihiro's is one of the best ones you can get. Now, if you don't need a crazy powerful light, aka you're just mostly running like Anubius and Java Ferns or Swords, these things that don't really require high light, you don't need a super powerful light. However, what I will say is things like the UNS Titan, the 80A Solar RGB, and the Chihiros do have a certain level of quality to them that causes a visual quality of your fish better than almost any other light on the market. Let me give you an example. I have a UNS Titan, and I've played with it a little bit, but I don't have it on any particular tank right now because I don't need that much light. And it's just on and off. However, when I pointed at rainbow fish, there's a bunch of iridescence that I don't see under even something like my fluvels that I love. Because there is a difference in the quality, mostly of the white LEDs that are being used. However, as the Australian opinion is saying, a majority of modern LEDs are quite good, even some of the entry-level ones. The difference just becomes how long they last and or what level of functionality you want out of them. Once you figure out how to use that app, there's a lot of stuff you can do with the Chihiro's lights, as far as customization and things like that. But you can do a lot of customization with several other lights as well. So the question is, do you need a super powerful light or not? That's, I think, the thing that would be the biggest influence on me making a decision. So, yeah. Aquarium fund. So 30-day return for any reason is voluntary. It seems like a strange policy to be mandatory. I think when you run into a certain level of consumer expectation, it will inherently cause it to become, effectively speaking, mandatory. Because if you want to be successful and all your competition takes it as if it is mandatory and you do not, guess what's going to happen? You will lose consumer trust. We're used to something very different, right? Here, it's like if something has a good warranty, you get a certain level of trust with it naturally. Because there's not a default policy like that. There's only a few like places where you things like have something like a lemon law as an example of cars, right, in the United States, but it's not universal across any given product. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's just a matter of like changing mentality. I've worked for 30 years as a computer programmer. I've been lucky; it never felt like a job. That's good. Usually means you're in the right profession. I both love and hate what I do. I love what I do, but often it is seen as the first thing to be cut when larger corporations, especially, are being very, very aggressive about trying to increase their stock prices, like most of the tech industry right now. And there is a massive I guess I would almost say like view that quality assurance, which is what I do, is just a cost center and not a value add. When realistically, we're one of the best value adds for your customers. It sucks. But yeah, whatever. Life is life. Things are cyclical. Things change. Let me see here. I want to grab a couple quick questions before we run, but we're a little over time. Jose, maybe if Phoenix still made their old color enhancing monster array, people could combine it with cheaper regular LEDs that have more yellowish color temperature. Yeah, I think one of the problems is also just Phoenix inherently has changed, or maybe it's more accurate to say that their competition has continuously increased its capacity and its quality to a point of where Phoenix is no longer competing very well in space. When they didn't have nearly as much competition, they were seen as one of the best in the space. But now there's lots of competition, including from just significantly cheaper Chinese-made lights of like, who knows who actually makes them, because like 5 different companies have slapped their name on the same light. but you can get a significant quality akin to a Phoenix for significantly less money. It's hard to see a light like the Phoenix and be like, I'm excited about that. I think they're trying to make some strides, but I've kind of stepped away from that company in general because it's like their warranty sucks. They're very fragile in the grand scheme of things in my experience. Like they get dunked in water and they're just screwed. And the light I like the most, the Stingray, the newest versions of them seem weaker. But yeah. Hold on. There was one about the Aquasky 3.0. There it is. I just bought an Aquasky 3.0 from Petco to test it out. It needs 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi. My main Wi-Fi is 5 gigahertz, so I need to use my guest Wi-Fi to update the firmware. It is a little weird that a light recently made does not have like dual channel Wi-Fi, or is not just naturally set for a 5 gigahertz band. There is also that, like 2.4 gigahertz actually travels farther than 5 gigahertz, so it can kind of make sense why you would choose that, because you want something that's going to carry a little broader distance on the receiver. But yeah, I don't know. You would think you just have a dual channel and it would look for either. One would think, but yeah, whatever. Most chips used as power smart devices are only 2.4 gigahertz. That's probably also a good one. Okay, last one. Gary Duncan, I swear by the Fluval Aquasky for my low light planted library tank, and I'm forever grateful for your Aquasky videos. Thank you, man. Gary, I really appreciate it. I like that light a lot. If you don't need a ton of light, I actually think it's a great light. I know a lot of people have some complaints because there's no like physical button to control it. You have to control it with the app, and there's some people that don't like that. But I'm such a software nerd that I don't care. If I have an app, I want to play with it. I really like the upgrades to the new version of the Fluval app instead of Fluval Smart, the companion app. I actually think that that's a like massive step in the right direction. There's definitely more they could do. I want to be very clear. I've given them feedback on this multiple times, but it's a significant increase compared to what the previous Fluval Smart app was, as far as just user control, being easier, all that kind of stuff. Did you notice a slightly longer startup time for the new app? I mean, it's not enough to where I really care that much. It's not like I'm waiting multiple minutes. And I have a somewhat older phone, so I kind of expect everything's like boot cycle to be a little bit longer. Because I have a Pixel 6, which is what they're on the 10. I'm about to be on something else, like the 11 or whatever the heck the next one is. So, I'm several years old at this point. I tend to make my phones go a lot longer than a lot of my other tech because I don't need to upgrade every other year. They're very expensive now. These phones cost way too much money. But yeah, it's only been recently that inexpensive microcontrollers have come out with 5 gigahertz radios. That's good to know. I don't dig as deeply into the microcontroller hardware market as I do like the PC hardware market. I'm kind of a bit of an information psycho when it comes to like PC level hardware. But a lot of like micro level stuff I don't look as deeply because I'm not playing with a ton of microcontrollers. That's not my personal hobby. I got friends that do, and they would be the person I would ask that kind of stuff of. Just a note that the Petco does have a bit of a sale on the Aquasky 3.0 and a 10% coupon code for over $50. So it's not a bad deal right now if you're looking for that. I'm waiting for the new plant one. Oh, by the way, I got a response from Fluval. We'll make this the last thing because we're definitely over time. And I gotta take brother-in-law James to something really fast and then get dinner. The 4.0, I'd like the Pro too. I want all of them. I want to test all of them and play with all of them. But Fluval mentioned that not all of the new lights are in the US market yet. But when all of them are in the US market, they might reach back out to me. So we might get some lights to play with here soon. I don't know. If I do get anything, of course, like we'll do all the usual things where we will test them, we will play with them, we'll do settings, we'll do all that kind of stuff. I'm very thankful that because of my own psychotic love of the Fluval lights, that I have a kind of good relationship with the Fluval. It's really minor. I think I talk to the folks at Fluval maybe once a year, if that. But they have let me try a few things and be able to do reviews and stuff on without having to buy everything myself, which is kind of nice because that allows me to put money toward other potential testing projects and stuff like that. So anyway, yeah, but as usual, well, all the typical discretions. They don't get to have any influence on videos, all that usual stuff. Those are my rules. I actually, one more story. I'm sorry. You know me. I just talk and talk and talk and don't shut up. I got in a email altercation with a company that was trying to do a sponsorship, and I told them specifically, I refuse to be paid for a product review. However, I will not send you a video ahead of time. Will not send you a script. Dog, shut up. It's just Uncle James. You're such a dope. Quit trying to find something to bark at. You're fine. Like losing her mind over here. Thinks she's a guard dog. And you will get to see at the same time my audience does. And this company was fighting back and forth with me, and I said, cool. If those are your requirements, aka they wanted to see everything first to make sure I accurately reflected the product. That is literally what they said in the email. Then I'm just not interested, and you can just walk away. What's so hard to understand about this? And whoever their rep was, kept emailing me, and I finally just went, I'm not doing a video with you. Never contact me again. If you contact me any further, I will inherently just go badmouth your product. Because of your actions. Not because of the product quality. It might be a great product. And I've recently seen several videos from different influencers in different spaces for the exact product. Yeah. Fun, right? Wanna know what it is? Wanna know? You guys ever seen those Jackery portable power stations? It's one of those. It was that company. I did see something for not a microphone, or maybe it was a microphone. No, it was a webcam that I was interested in trying because I was just going to give it to my wife. And they're like, yeah, the company changed their mind and they're actually going to pull the product off a website. Okay. It was one of the few things I was legitimately interested in because it was basically a really high quality webcam, like what you would have in conference rooms and things like that. It was one of the few products I saw that had nothing to do with fish where I was like, I actually would want to test this and do a video on it. But nah. But yeah, those stupid Jackery portable power things, they, just as a heads up, they require to preview your video and your scripts, whatever, if you run off of scripts, to make sure that you are being accurate about the product. AKA, if you say anything they don't like, they would not sponsor you and they would not pay you. And everything was forced. They were very adamant that they wanted to pay people. What's your rate? What's your rate? We'll give you an affiliate link on top of knowing what your rate is. This is how you know that I'm a bad YouTuber. I don't do any of that stuff that would help monetize my channel in any way, shape, or form. Because I don't care. Anyway, gang, well, thank you so much for being with me tonight. Despite some technical difficulties and having to do some weird mumbo jumbo to see chat over in my broadcast software instead of over here where I usually do. I hope you all have had a fantastic night. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. As always, thank you so much for watching. And stay awesome. And don't buy that stupid Jackery power thingamajob. It's all lies.